After playing countless hours of Crimson Desert, there were plenty of discoveries I made that made me go, wait a second, that was there? Available to me this entire time? It's completely normal to feel a little overwhelmed when starting a game as expansive as Crimson Desert. Almost immediately after you begin, you have access to its unfathomably large open world, which is both a blessing and a curse, since the promise of doing anything you can think of can create a bit of choice paralysis. If you need some advice on some good things to do right when you start, here's a list of 12 things to do first in Crimson Desert. The very first thing you should do as soon as you make the trip into Hernand at the start of the game is grab the shield and sealed abyss artifact that are sitting at the altar on the side of the road that you'll ride into town on. You can find the altar just northeast of the stables that are north of Hernand. The shield has better base stats than the Grey Wolf wooden shield that you start the game with, so it's a no-brainer to pick up as soon as you can for an easy upgrade. The sealed abyss artifact is one of the 3 skill currencies in Crimson Desert that allows you to upgrade your character. When you pick it up, you'll be assigned a challenge in the Goyen's Arrangement Shield Path in the Mastery Challenges. Take note that this particular challenge will require the Shield Bash technique and is very tricky to do, especially in the early hours of the game since you need to kill 3 enemies with your shield, an item that doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Pick it up if you want, but if you want an easier Sealed Abyss Artifact challenge, you can find one just north of the altar, immediately next to the giant bridge you cross when riding into town. This challenge only requires you to get 3 kills with a sword within 30 seconds. Easy. You can grab these items at any time, so if you miss them in the early moments, don't worry, they'll still be there for you to grab when you're in the area. Since you start your adventure so close to their location, however, it's a good idea to pick them up as soon as possible to give you a head start on upgrading your gear and skill tree. Even though you can technically completely ignore the main quest in Crimson Desert, I'd recommend finishing Chapter 1 at the very least before running off in your desired direction. Without wishing to spoil much of the story, you'll end the chapter by gaining a handful of incredibly useful abilities that change the way you interact with the world. By the time the chapter is done, you'll have gained Axiom Force, an ability that allows you to grab items with magic, telekinesis style, Force Palm, a powerful punch that sends enemies and physics objects flying, and Flight, an ability that lets you glide for a short amount of time. There are a lot of abilities in the skill tree that are unlocked simply by completing quests, but you can purchase some of them early if you have enough Abyss artifacts. That said, Axiom Force, Force Palm, and Flight are only attainable by completing the quest, so it's best to get them as soon as possible. Inventory space is an important commodity in Crimson Desert. However, you won't have access to very much of it at the start. Your pockets will fill up incredibly fast, but luckily, expanding your inventory slots is pretty straightforward in the early game. To do so, you need to complete quests. Completing some main quests will expand your slots, but if you want to get an additional 12 slots right off the bat, complete the 3 Tales of Hernandian Merchant quests that are available to you the second you march into town. Rhett and Ternali, the blacksmith and weapons dealer, offer simple fetch quests that have you mine some ore and lumber in nearby areas, while Renee, the butcher, asks you to cook fish porridge at a nearby cooking pot. It's important to note that when you're completing Renee's quest, she'll give you all of the ingredients you need to cook the fish porridge, but you'll need to make sure that you're cooking the correct fish porridge recipe. In the version of the game we played, it actually required modest fish porridge to be cooked instead of just fish porridge. This is a known bug that may have been fixed by the time Crimson Desert is out, but just keep that in mind in case you make regular fish porridge, but don't get credit for the quest. You can get the quests from notice boards scattered across Hernand, or just by approaching each vendor and talking with them. The quests are incredibly simple to complete and rewards you with 3 inventory slots each, which is a huge expansion in the early hours. Plus, by doing the quests, you'll gain a handful of important life tools like the pickaxe and logging axe. You'll also be able to purchase additional inventory slots at vendors in town, so make sure you buy those as soon as you have enough money. If you're looking to commit some crimes, and let's be honest, that's half of the reasons we like playing video games, you'll need to get a mask to hide your identity. Masks are a common item dropped by bandits you'll fight out in the world, so if you're not in a rush to start stealing stuff, you can just wait until you've picked one up off a fallen enemy. However, if you want to get right to it, head to the Back Alley Merchant to the southeast of Hernand, just south of the church. Here, you can buy a mask from the merchant and steal to your heart's content. Make sure you take the mask off, however, as you explore the world, otherwise you might be mistaken for a thief and charged with a crime. While you're at the Back Alley Merchant, it's also not a bad idea to purchase the merchant's stock of keys. There are hundreds of locked doors all across Crimson Desert that you won't be able to open unless you have keys in your inventory. Some doors require specific keys to open, but the vast majority are one size fits all, so you'll want to start working on creating a stockpile of them as early as you can. Take note that keys are used automatically when you walk through a locked door, and there's no way to see from afar if a door is locked or not before opening it, so you might burn through those initial keys pretty quick. Luckily, you'll find more keys as you explore the world. Just look for the small bag icon on your minimap, and merchants eventually restock, so you'll be able to top up your stash even if you burn through it. With a mask and at least one key in your pocket, it's not a bad idea to consider robbing the Hernand Bank if you want to line your pockets with some extra cash when you get started in Crimson Desert. With both items, head to the bank on the north side of Hernand after saving your game, just in case things break bad. Put the mask on, enter the bank, and head through the door on the left. When you open it, it'll automatically use a key from your inventory and you'll find yourself inside the storeroom. Once the door closes behind you, loot as much as you can from the strong boxes and chests in the room. The chests will be on the ground and the strong boxes are on the shelf on the opposite side of the room you entered in. As you grab the boxes and open the chests, you'll likely run out of inventory space, but if you take the time to open the boxes and the bags of silver and copper that you just picked up, you'll free those slots up to make room for even more. With the entire room raided, wait for the theft meter in the top right corner of the screen to go all the way down, then take off your mask and quickly exit the bank. If you've done it all properly without anyone noticing, you'll walk away with plenty of silver in your bag and none the wiser. It's important to note that in robbing the bank, your contribution meter for Hernand will take a hit, but I hardly lost a single level from the crime and the meter is quickly filled by completing side and main quest lines. It's something to consider before robbing the place, but it ultimately shouldn't have much bearing on your relationship with the town. Also, if you wait a few in-game days, you can go and rob the bank again. If you look at the minimap while you explore the shops and alleys of Hernand, you might notice a bell icon that's next to a tower in the center of town. Crimson Desert doesn't directly tell you what that does, but it's actually a crucially important mechanic that you should engage with as soon as possible. If you climb to the top of the tower and ring the bell, the map will immediately populate with icons and helpful information, saving you plenty of time from having to walk directly up to the hundreds of question marks on the minimap. Ringing the bell doesn't show you absolutely everything on the map, but it does show you a lot of what you need to get started by highlighting important places where you're likely to find major side quests and characters. As you explore Crimson Desert, make sure to keep an eye out for other bell towers in major cities, since you'll realize just how helpful they are as soon as you ring your first in Hernand. Speaking of the map, as you explore, you'll notice areas marked down as mysterious energy. Once you see these spots on the map, it's a good idea to make it a priority to check them out, since many times they'll be marking the location of Abyss Nexus, the fast travel points in Crimson Desert. Because of how large the map is in Crimson Desert, you'll definitely want the option to fast travel when returning to major locations instead of making the trek on foot or horseback. Once you find an Abyss Nexus, simply stand on it to activate it, and you'll be able to teleport directly to it by selecting it on the map. Take note that the mysterious energy locations on the map aren't always hiding in Abyss Nexus. They hide all manner of secrets, usually tied to the Abyss. Sometimes there'll be puzzles in the form of Abyss Crescents, and once you solve the puzzle, not only will you get a fast travel location out of it, but you'll also be rewarded with an Abyss artifact as well. The skill tree in Crimson Desert is huge and can be a little overwhelming when starting out. If you're not sure what to put points into, it's a good idea to work on increasing your stamina until you reach 200 points. You can see your stamina stats in the inventory menu. Stamina is an incredibly important resource in Crimson Desert since it dictates how often you can use certain combat skills, how high you can climb, and how long you can glide and sprint. 200 stamina points is a great baseline for letting you traverse the world quickly on foot, and it also opens the door for acquiring two of the best traversal skills in the game, Aerial Maneuver and Aerial Swing, in the Axiom Force node in the red branch of the skill tree. Both skills cost 200 stamina points to use, so you want to put at least 4 points into the stamina node in the blue branch of the tree if you want to start swinging around like Spider-Man. When you first start Crimson Desert, you might be a little underwhelmed by what your horse can do, but you can significantly improve it right from the start. The first thing you can do is simply ride your horse everywhere at the start of the game. This will increase its level over time, which will give it more abilities such as sprinting, drifting, kicking, swimming, and double jumping. It doesn't take long to get your horse to level 2 simply by riding. This unlocks dashing, which drastically increases how quickly you can explore the world. Additionally, once you've got some cash in your pocket, stop at the stables to the north of Hernand and purchase some gear for your horse, like a saddle and horseshoes, which can upgrade its health and stamina recovery. While you're at the stables, it's not a bad idea to purchase some horse health recovery items like hay and sugar cubes in case your horse ends up in the middle of a fight and takes some damage. The second that you're able to explore Pywel, you'll notice a lot of small scroll icons on the minimap. If you investigate them, you'll learn that the scrolls are marking recipe pages that you can learn to cook from. It's a good idea to grab a few recipes and see if you can't put any of them together based on simple ingredients that can be either bought from vendors or found while exploring. There are a lot of items that can restore your health, stamina, and spirit. However, cooked meals with multiple ingredients are by far the most helpful things for buffing yourself mid-fight. If you can make a few meals based on these simple recipes found in Hernand, you should be set for some of the tougher boss encounters in the early chapters of Crimson Desert. Once you've read a recipe, the page will take up a precious spot in your inventory, but you can actually just sell them once you've learned the information you need from them. They usually fetch a decent price from vendors and clutter up your inventory, so if you're looking for a bit of extra money early on while also helping your overall game, chasing down recipes should be prioritized. You start Crimson Desert with a horse named Herspia, but you can also befriend other animals who are just as helpful as your horse since they will loot bodies of fallen enemies during combat encounters. Getting a pet is pretty simple. Once you've made it to Hernand, you'll find a lot of stray animals on the streets. Decide what animal you want to adopt, and then pet it. When you do, the animal's trust will increase by 5 points. You can pet an animal 5 times per day to get 25 trust points before needing to wait until the next day to earn more points. You can speed up the process, however, by feeding the animal some raw meat, which will increase its trust in you by 10 points per food item you give it. Once you reach 100 trust, the animal will become your pet, which I was able to do in just 2 in-game days. With a pet bound to you, get into a fight and it'll start picking up loot off of fallen bandits. Just make sure you have some open inventory space to hold it. So those are 12 things to do first once you start Crimson Desert. There are a lot of systems in the game and many of them go largely unexplained, so make sure you check out our other videos on the things Crimson Desert doesn't tell you. For everything else, make sure to stick with IGN.